The Handmaid's Tale is back for its 6th and final season after a long break. The story's dystopia always felt unnervingly close to our modern era, and that continues to hold true as we're dropped into the first 3 episodes of its final run. Over the show's previous 5 seasons, some viewers have felt that the show had lost its spark. So does it seem like it's finally getting it back now for this final round? Let's unpack what's happened so far in Season 6, what it all means, and where things might be going next.
We can't just let them win.
Just to note, we'll be breaking this video into chapters by episode, so if you don't have time to watch all 3 episodes at once, you can just pause the video and come back as you finish each episode. Before we dive into the new episodes, let's quickly turn back the clock to remember where the show left off at the end of Season 5.
America wasn't Gilead until it was, and then it was too late.
Over the course of the 5th season, we saw Gilead continue to attempt to consolidate power and keep its regime from crumbling, while more and more people were able to escape and get asylum in Canada, leading to a rising anti-refugee sentiment in the country. Commander Lawrence began putting into motion his idea for a new and improved settlement that can work as a sort of in-between state, connecting Gilead to the outside world and vice versa. As Season 5 neared its end, June had made it to Canada and reconnected with Luke, but unfortunately she still wasn't safe. They decide to attempt to head west with Nicole to find a more safe and secure place to live, and where they could hopefully be able to better strategize a plan to save their daughter Hannah. Saving Hannah quickly had become a particularly pressing matter because June was informed by Nick that the purple robe she had seen Hannah wearing indicated that she had been placed in a school for wives in training. Serena had come to realize that her position in society might not be as secure as she might have once imagined, and after being threatened with being sent away without her son Noah, she made a break for it. Janine stood up to Naomi and was soon apprehended for it. While still grappling with the attempt on her life, June is yet again attacked. This time, a Gilead-branded vehicle hits her and almost kills her. But Luke is able to stop it just in time by beating up the driver, who eventually succumbs to his injuries. A warrant was put out for Luke's arrest, and that, combined with everything else boiling over, pushed June to decide that it's time to go now.
We have to go. We have to run. Now.
They decided to flee, first by plane, though after they're warned about the amount of police at the airport, they opt for the refugee train. Luke, realizing that his being hunted by the authorities would also put June and Nicole in danger, decided to turn himself in so that they have a chance to make it out west to safety.
Do not do this. Don't do this.
They're not letting the train leave until they find me, so get on the train.
The couple are forced to part yet again, as this time June boards the train and Luke is taken into custody. At the last moment, June ran into none other than Serena on the train. Season 6 opens right where Season 5 left off, with June still on the train with Nicole, headed west in hopes of sailing out to Hawaii and finally being out of reach of Gilead's grasp, and where she'll be able to strategize both how to save Hannah and reunite with Luke. June is still struggling with her injuries from being hit, and it turns out that her arm wound has become infected. Serena is attempting to turn over a new leaf. Kind of. She attempts to convince June that she really is ready to be free and to be on the side of the good fight for once. June is, unsurprisingly, not convinced. No one on the train, aside from June, knows who she is or what her background is. So Serena believes that this is her chance for a new start for herself and her son Noah. Serena has always represented the question of how much sympathy we could, or should, have for someone who helps uphold a system that harms others, and even themselves to a degree. And that continues here, as she feels like because she has finally decided to turn away from cruelty, everyone else should just be on her side and forget and forgive all of her previous choices that caused so much harm. We can see this in the way that she expects to be able to make jokes with June, like about stealing her baby while she's asleep.
You think I'm gonna steal your daughter while you're sleeping like some kind of a Disney villain? For God's sake, June. That's completely idiotic.
Because she, at the end of the day, sees herself as the center of everything. She can't quite really grasp the degree to which just because she says she's changed doesn't mean that anyone else is going to believe her until she actually proves it.
Maybe your friend could take your daughter for a moment.
Yes.
No.
And while she may profess to be turning a new corner, We can see through her actions that she hasn't actually truly left the mindset of Gilead behind. In an attempt to be helpful, she takes control over the other women and children on the train, segregating them from everyone else for their own good. Nick, who had been in custody for slugging Lawrence at the end of last season, returns home to his wife Rose, who is not particularly happy to see him. Rose's father, Commander Wharton, who had been a threatening but unseen presence until now, has come to New Bethlehem to keep a watchful eye over Nick, Rose, and their coming baby. Moira finds out that the Canadian cabinet is looking to make some major moves, turning away from America and embracing Gilead. The stress that it feels like everything is collapsing and people are giving up the fight, she decides to join the resistance in a new, possibly dangerous way.
I want to help. I need to help.
While the train was initially headed for Vancouver, it turns out that it is no longer.
They're overwhelmed and they won't let the train come in.
But where it is going now is anyone's guess. As the women in the train car are sharing their stories, June opens up about a deep, hidden level of her grief. She feels that she let Hannah go when she was captured. Even though she was being overpowered by multiple armed men, she still carries trauma and guilt because she feels like she should have somehow done more to hold on to her daughter.
They were soldiers. I'm her mom.
This bubbles up in every facet of June's life in ways big and small. From her endless drive to get Hannah back at any cost, to tiny moments like earlier in the day when she was caring for Noah and comforts him with,
Mommy's always coming.
The doctor that was helping June with her arm blows up Serena's spot and lets everyone know who she really is, and they are not happy about it. Here, June has to make a critical decision: to save Serena or let everyone tear her to shreds. Even given all of Serena's evil, their past has bonded them together in a dark way. And to some degree, June wants to believe that someone like Serena can change, no matter how much previous evidence she might have been given to the contrary. Though she's called a traitor for it, she does help Serena flee. This isn't the first time June has helped someone escape a group punishment, but this time it isn't an innocent. Serena very much deserves to be met with the consequences of her actions. She's someone who was absolutely partly responsible for the suffering these women endured. But June is compelled not just by her own morals and sense of justice, but also by the trauma she's endured and the other sides of Serena that she feels like she's seen. That she still has hopes might win out in the battle for her soul in the end. After Serena escapes, the train heads on to its new destination, Alaska, and June is met with another big surprise. This time, finally running into her mother. This episode opens following Serena after her escape from the train with her son. She comes upon a religious commune that accepts refugees, and now realizing just how much she and women like her are hated, decides to come up with an alias.
What should we call you? Rachel.
While June is obviously happy to see her mother after being separated for so long, it's clear that there are other feelings coming up to the surface as well. We learn about what happened to June's mom Holly during Gilead's rise. She was convicted and sent to work in the colonies where she was kept prisoner.
How did you survive that?
Well, a doctor's useful.
It wasn't God. We had a really smart doctor who gave a shit.
Eventually, her colony was liberated by the army and she was sent to Alaska. Holly's optimistic belief that she and June would always find each other again, and that June would make it out of anything because she had raised her to be a fighter, brings up a deep pain for June. The last time she saw Hannah, she didn't remember her. And it's clear that June worries that she didn't have enough time to raise Hannah to be a fighter, and thus she might end up trapped forever if she can't free her herself. She also has to carry the guilt of getting out while other handmaids are still trapped. And she tells her mother that she won't remove her ear tag until all of the handmaids are free. Luke is still stuck in Toronto awaiting his court date, but thankfully at least gets the update from Moira that June and Nicole safely made it to Alaska. There's a moment of levity as June is able to call Moira and Luke. She's relieved to hear that Luke is out of prison, and he and Moira are ecstatic to find out that June found Holly. But Luke and Moira keep the fact that they're planning to go on a Mayday mission into no man's land a secret. After a time jump, we learn that the leader of the commune actually knew who Serena was the entire time.
I wanted to serve the glory of God.
Is that all?
It went wrong.
All by itself.
Lawrence arrives and asks, backed up both by stroking her ego and threats of Noah being taken from her by the eyes, Serena to return and be the spokesperson for New Bethlehem. Nick continues to play both sides, living as a commander but also working to pass intel to the Resistance operatives. Like Serena, Nick has also long been used to question just how reformed someone who functions within the machine of cruelty can truly be. While he has helped out June and Mayday numerous times, he's also not always been totally on their side. As he settled more and more into his life as a commander and with his wife and soon-to-be-born son, the allure of just giving up helping the Resistance altogether has pulled harder and harder. And in this episode, we see him choose to go a little further down that path. Across the show, we see play out the idea of how, while many people might like to think of themselves as good, they'll often choose to keep power over doing the right thing when push comes to shove. The episode ends with both Serena and June making their way back to the worlds they had left. As the title suggests, this episode interrogates the idea of devotion. To a cause, to a religion, to each other, to the future. Serena has doubled down on her devotion to her religion, and now to helping build New Bethlehem. Her belief in this higher power seems to rest pretty firmly on the fact that things always seem to work out for her in the end, as June remarks.
Treated like royalty.
It's not surprising. She always comes out on top.
She holds on to the religion because it's the base of the structure of the society in which she gets to be on top. No matter how much it might harm anyone else, as long as it's good for her, she's happy to uphold it.
The world needs New Bethlehem to work and to grow and to thrive.
In various governments on the show, we've seen a dedication to attempting to keep a status quo, even as it crumbles. And we see this here again a bit in the dignitaries who have come to visit New Bethlehem, and though it's quite clearly just creating the same issue again but with nicer language, are swayed by this more easily digestible package. For his part, Lawrence isn't interested in creating anything new, just something profitable. He doesn't really care about fixing the problems of Gilead, but rather just papering them over so that they're easier to ignore, at least for those at the top. Mayday sits on the other end of the spectrum, devoted to tearing down structures that have created this unjust world at any cost. Though he has gotten pulled further and further into the running of New Bethlehem, Nick hasn't totally devoted himself to the cause, but not out of some larger moral issue, but instead more specifically out of his connection to June. He ends up agreeing to help her save Luke and Moira from where they're trapped in no man's land after the flubbed pickup operation, even though he knows it'll likely cause him problems and even possibly get him in trouble. While he did help in this instance, he's very much a part of this tyrannical power structure. And as June's mother very clearly pointed out to her, that means he'll never truly be trustworthy. If his desire to help is only out of his love for June and Nicole, what happens when he falls out of love with June and has a new baby to focus on? To justify so much of the cruelty of Gilead, many of its most ardent supporters had convinced themselves that it was all for the greater good in the end. But we continue to see that break down when confronted with reality more and more. Aunt Lydia, for example, who had been a terrifying proponent of Gilead's work, is shocked by the truth about what really happens to the handmaids in this society when she finds out where Janine has been sent.
But you shouldn't be here. You all bore fruit. I was told you'd be rewarded for your service.
Yeah, well, surprise. They lied to you.
June has to deal with the question of devotion across multiple axes. To her trapped daughter Hannah, to her free daughter Nicole, who she left with her mother in Alaska, to Mayday and the Resistance, to her husband, to Nick, to herself. Being pulled across so many lines means that she can't possibly devote herself fully to anything or anyone. And so in each moment she must make tough decisions as to where she'll orient her attention, and thus what she'll have to, at least for the time, neglect. She feels like no matter which route she chooses, someone she loves is going to get hurt. Not to mention all of the handmaids and children who are still trapped in Gilead. But she knows that she can't become paralyzed into doing nothing. So she makes the decision to continue fighting. The idea of if Serena will get a proper redemption arc has been in play since early on in the show. And at the very beginning of this season, it seemed like things might finally be heading that way. But now, by the end of the 3rd episode, it looks like things might be going in the opposite direction, with Serena regaining her throne of power and thus possibly evolving into an even worse villain than before. While her story certainly isn't over, there's so much that could happen in the next 7 episodes. Her arc and her continual retreating back into the safety of the power structure that upholds her at the expense of others absolutely rings true to a pattern we so often see play out in real life. The show feels so close to our modern era and problems not just because of the totalitarian society and larger structures of cruelty, but also because it's so adept at honing in on the smaller interpersonal issues at play too. The individual choices people make, and how those affect this society, either to uphold it or to help tear it down. Some viewers have complained, especially during the show's later seasons, that it came to feel repetitive or like it wasn't moving toward a real desired conclusion, which fair enough. But that's also just how it is to actually try to survive in and take down a totalitarian regime of this magnitude. It isn't something where one person or a small group of people can just decide, okay, yeah, this is bad, let's stop it right now, and then everything is fixed in a week or two. It's a long, drawn-out process of trying and failing and trying and failing again, doing anything you can think of to make a change and having to grapple with the fact that it often won't work. But you have to keep trying anyway. While we'd love to imagine that this season will be building toward the cathartic toppling of Gilead and the evil regime, unfortunately, it looks like we already know that that won't be the case, at least not entirely. Because Hulu has already announced it will be making a series based on the Handmaid Tale's sequel, The Testaments. Gilead definitely still exists within that series, and so it's safe to assume that the Handmaid's Tale series finale won't include the end of that terrifying society. But that doesn't mean things are totally without hope. Even if they don't totally topple the regime, they could still save a lot of people, and help set society back down a better path, even if they aren't able to see it all the way to that new end. That's the take. Click here to watch the video we think you'll love, or here to check out a whole playlist of awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications.